What to do, y'all? This is Chris Evans, and this is Talking Data and More. And today I have a very special guest. My guest has led and oversaw multi-million-dollar project initiatives as a data delivery director, program deck director. She's also an Agile coach today, and she's recently moved to sunny Australia. Welcome, my guest, Jyoti Dandona. Welcome, Jyoti.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. And yes, it's beautiful and sunny out here. We're almost in our finishing winter, so looking forward to summer pretty soon.
That's awesome.
I'm very glad to be here with you. And like you said, I have led and breathed through data initiatives, right from data warehousing to ETL development to my beautiful, beautiful reporting and analytics and everything data, be it data modeling, business glossary, metadata management, and now recently to coaching in data programs. So happy to be here.
Awesome, Jyoti. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with me today on Talking Data and More. And as you provided that brief introduction, I think you still undersold yourself. You are much more. Can you, for the folks that don't know who you are, can you give them that brief introduction?
Sure, why not? I have been doing IT. I've been in IT for almost 18 years now. And I started my career in a small company as a mainframe developer. So literally started my career with a COBOL development, loved the JCL kicks, grew into an ETL developer. The company had recently bought license for Ab Initio, which was not a known tool at that time. And it used Unix and SQL quite heavily. So we didn't have the GUI that people have right now. So I had privilege of working with that tool very, very, very early on. And that means that I had to master the skills of Unix and SQL quite a bit. Loved SQL, loved data from there, got into data mining a little bit. I always wondered why people use data, what kind of data, what do they actually do with it? So analysis and analytical reporting became my area of passion. And I think I followed that quite a bit. So with ETL, I started walking into Cognos reporting, business object reporting, MicroStrategy, ClickView, all of those tools. And I love to see the different dashboards and reports. And I love to fiddle with the data in the background. So what happens if I change a birth date a little bit? Or what happens if I change the policy end date? So just running my fingers around data just to see how and what impact it has downstream, it gave me a lot of pleasure. I used to work with Snowflake model quite a bit, ER diagrams, loved doing DB2 queries, and ultimately I started doing data modeling, which was not an easy task, had quite a lot of big senior people with a lot of experience teaching me how to do that. So I enjoyed that bit quite a bit. With that, I got into data delivery. The focus was more into delivering solutions, be it data migration or integration projects, or the last big one that I did was a data lake. So that is kind of my consulting and delivery experience. With that, I think I got noticed quite a bit as an SME into data, all things data. And I also started using Agile process for data delivery. So people started asking me if I could help out other programs, if I could consult them, if I could give them a little bit of advice on which frameworks to use. I think that's when somebody noticed me high up saying she has some valuable knowledge and asked me if I would like to try coaching. Now, coaching for me was not very different from consulting because I was already doing that with my client. But I saw the difference when I started getting into it quite a bit. And I'm very proud that I've been able to coach data programs.
That's awesome, Jyoti. And I love that you mentioned about the passion. I could see it, especially as you talk about it with your whole experience in data. I have to ask, because you mentioned and you talk about passion, and you could see in the background, and I ask all my guests this, right? Who is your favorite comic book character, cartoon character, anime character, and why? I got to ask.
I usually feel scared to answer that question because people may judge me. But looking at your wall, I'm pretty sure you and I would agree on this. I am very fond of Wonder Woman. Diana King for me has to be that.
That's awesome. I love Wonder Woman. princess of the Amazonian warriors, representing. That's a great, and I think for you, somebody who has the passion in data, who's had the ability to wear multiple hats, like I would say, right? That is a perfect persona in the comic book realm to represent you, Jyoti. I love it. Love it.
Thank you.
And, with Wonder Woman, her data, her superpowers, right? I would like to translate that to your data superpowers, right? As a delivery manager, as an Agile coach. Can you talk about the role of an Agile coach and what is the value for an organization to have an Agile coach or a data Agile team? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a good analogy with the Wonder Woman. I wish I had the lasso though. Would make my life so
That's
much
right.
simpler. I see Agile coaches as that secret sauce, which when put in the mix, gives you the most delicious soup you've ever had. It's a catalyst role. It's a role that would help you understand the need for change, the how and why and when of a transformation. Because quite often you see and hear people saying, oh, we need to change, we need to progress, we need to deliver, we need to do things. The problem is we ask people to commit on a change, but we don't give them the clarity or communication. That is where the coaches come in and help a lot. They seek and provide that clarity of the transformation and they communicate that transformation. That's where you can actually see people committing to transformation. Um, an agile coach is very valuable to an organization which wants to tread on the path of a culture change. Because being agile and doing agile are two very different things. You can do agile, you can have the processes, you can invest as much as you want in fancy tools, but if the mindset of people is not influenced and if they are not with you on that journey, there's not much success you can achieve. So the team needs to be there, the people need to be there with you on that journey. And that's where the coaches excel. They also help people understand where the flow of work is blocked. It's very interesting and very important for an organization to understand the system of their work, the flow of work. And oftentimes we think, oftentimes it happens, we always focus on IT, development, testing, and keep pressurizing saying, cut your cycle time, make it faster, do testing faster. But what we need to see is a bigger picture. What happens before work goes over there? Where does it start? What are the various hops it's going through? Where is the flow getting stuck? This is where coaches come in and actually help visualize that end-to-end picture, and they help with flow efficiencies.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love how you talk about that value for the Agile coach. And I think in just general, right, regardless, is it an organization trying to be data driven, utilizing the coach, right? Pretty much anything we do, even with sports, with somebody who's a Giants player, you need that coach, right? That's going to lead you to success. That's going to lead you to the overall vision, especially as now companies and organizations want to move to the cloud, need data faster, are looking for data quality. Totally agree with you on that, Jyoti. Love it.
Absolutely.
And, with that being said, you talked about the value of an Agile coach. And I think a lot of organizations also get confused when it comes to Agile, as you mentioned, and Agile coaches with Scrum Masters. We now also hear Scrum Masters, right? Can you talk about, is an Agile coach similar to a Scrum Master? And if not, what's the difference between those two?
Interesting question. And thank you for that, because that's very common misunderstanding that people have. They want to hire an agile coach who could be a scrum master or vice versa. What I'm going to say is in very specific terms, a scrum master is supposed to be somebody who's very capable at Scrum, is very, very knowledgeable at Scrum framework, how to implement it, has had hands-on knowledge, has a lot of experience in dealing with the teams, is an active member of the Scrum team, and coaches the team as well as product owner. This person's role is very important for team's performance. The role is very important for the team to start forming and actually start understanding these concepts of Scrum and imbibe those Scrum values. Without this role, it would be very hard for the team to start the journey. If they want to adopt a Scrum framework, definitely need an experienced Scrum Master. Now, let me tell you about Agile coaches. Agile coaches are not just Scrum Masters. Scrum is just one of the framework, but the coach's main focus is on lean, is on mindset, is on people, values, and principles. If you want to become a organization which is proud to be doing Agile and becoming Agile, being Agile, you need to have a coach to take you through that journey. The coach can help you in understanding what framework or multiple frameworks your organization needs, because each team, each program, each domain has a different need. So one size cannot fit all. While some teams are very good at doing Scrum, there may be another team doing Kanban and might be, very happy doing it and getting all the results. Some teams, specifically in infrastructure area, you're well off doing just lean. So a coach is someone who knows a lot of frameworks, not just Scrum, and is also able to understand what kind of framework needs to be adopted and sometimes adapted to the need of the organization. This person's main focus is on bringing the culture change, the mindset change, and imbibing the values and principles. Now, if I speak about a coach in an organization, a coach could work with multiple Scrum Masters. This person can be a coach to the Scrum Master as well, is a coach to leadership as well, is a coach to, in general, anyone who wants to learn more about Agile. So that's a way bigger role.
Yeah, and I would agree as you talk about both different roles, though both important for any organization that's being data driven, the value of the agile coach, working with all those different types of personas within the organization, coaching them for change, because now organizations are looking for change, right? Especially as we now move to the cloud and for that speed. So that's definitely great. And for the folks, again, that don't know you, you wrote a great article that still resonates today. In 2016, you put together an article on agile adoption for the data warehouse and BI programs, right? And in that article, you mentioned the agile frameworks take either that business-driven approach or that data-driven approach, right? And I love that. But, you talked about also where within that agile approach, many of the data warehousing and BI solutions are taking more of that data-driven approach rather than the business-driven, which is more important. Can you elaborate on what the differences of these approaches and what is the overall value, right, from each, especially for companies that are starting these types of initiatives?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I love the difference between the two, because often people try to understand where they're coming from, and people who work in data would probably understand or would appreciate the pros and cons of both. So when we talk about business-driven approach, it is more from business rules, more from business requirements, identifying the data needed to support business activities. They would be more focused on what kind of business logic they would need, and hence ask the teams to deliver that kind of reports or that kind of work packages. They could be building applications which are specifically for business needs. We had a lot of examples when we were working on this in one of the health company, where it was very driven from business thinking that this is what is going to be the next big thing. And hence they asked the product engineering team to work on those particular programs. As part of those programs, the product engineering team had a centralized data team, which I was part of. And we started collating the data and started, working on what their business rules would be satisfied and how would we accommodate those. Now that's very business driven approach. On the contrary, if we talk about data driven, it's totally different. It talks about strategic decisions which are made based on data analysis. For example, we ran a hackathon or an innovation labs kind of a thing, where we gave everyone a bunch of data. We gave them databases, we gave them all sorts of data that you can think of, dummy data, and asked them what are some things that you can come up with as problem statement. not the solution, but problem statement, which was a very innovative thought at that time because we had this huge amount of data and we were just thinking that what people think should be done with it. There were prizes, of course, and we had top three initiatives which were recognized. So my initiative was number 2, which was based on the data that we were seeing. We actually started thinking, can we use this data to see someone who's recently had a surgery or a hospital admission? What is the probability for that person based on the person's geography, demographics, age, nationality, all of that? What is the probability of that person to get readmitted again? So that was a problem statement that we could think of just based on data. And that particular initiative got voted as number 2. They actually gave us a little bit of award.
Wow.
But
Okay.
that's
Love it.
data driven. Yeah, so my team and I, we sat there looking at data and we had a lot of thoughts, but that was one thought which resonated with all of us. Now that's data driven approach. Think that you have so much of data because everything is data right now. You tap anywhere and you get data in your iPhone, in your cameras, in TV, radio station, everywhere you have data. We are collating this data, but what exactly are we trying to look at it? This is also where data scientists are actually doing a lot of work. That approach, when presented to business, they liked it. They said, yes, this is definitely something that could be very handy. This is something that could be very useful to medical practitioners. So that became a thing and they got a funding to actually do that. So that is a clear-cut example of a business versus a data-driven approach.
Jyoti, that's great. I love that how you talk about both those different types of approaches and the value from the business-driven approach and the data-driven approach. Thank you so much for clarifying that. You know, Jyoti, I want to bring up again on your article that you wrote, because again, as I mentioned, it's a game changer. It still resonates today. And in your article, you talk about recommendations around the data warehouse and BI programs. And one major point you discussed was shareholder participation, you know, which I feel is also sometimes a miss for organizations, especially when projects are led specifically by IT. Can you talk about the value of the stakeholder participation within or starting these types of initiatives or programs?
Absolutely. That's a great question, by the way, because we often see resistance from stakeholders. This is where I would like to quote from my article directly, that who is the stakeholder? So in data warehouse programs, this role will depend on the identity of the end user for the data being delivered. Is it reporting need, or is it needed by another application team or production support team going to be responsible for this team, for this data? Depending on the purpose and usage of the data, the product owner should be identified. This should be someone who can be involved early on in the life cycle to understand the requirements and needs. I think this is where we often miss having a product owner. We think of a product owner as someone who is representative of a business. Very good. But when you think of data, when you think of data programs, who is this business for you? Business could be a downstream application. You know, when we do data migration or data integration programs, we're usually doing that in order for the analysis team, analytical team to run their queries. So it's best suited that we have someone from there participate. That's our main stakeholder. Or sometimes we are building the databases, we are migrating the databases so that the operation teams can run their business as usual. Sometimes we're just optimizing the databases. That happens. We've migrated DB2 to Netezza to Teradata multiple times. So in that case, who's our stakeholder? There's nobody from business. It's actually operation teams, because they need to understand the nuances of what we're doing, what impact of this migration is going to be on their existing queries, existing programs, existing BAU. So it's not that hard to reach out to them and actually say, hey, do you guys want to participate? And we've done this beautifully in many programs where they were invited right in the beginning, where we were sharing with them the whole plan. Now they were able to see when we were planning to migrate, when we were trying to do a proof of concepts, what kind of tables would be loaded, what kind of query system would happen. We even shared the timings with them. It got very curious that they started coming in. It was not easy. We didn't ask them for anything. We just asked them for feedback. We said, if you could come for our demos, if you could just look at what we're doing and just provide us some feedback, say, it's working, you think it's going to break the system, you think this would not run very well with your application, existing system might have a problem. So we started bringing them in. Another stakeholder identification. A lot of times in a lot of programs, we always think of UAT in the end, 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, depending on the length of the program. But what happens when you bring the UAT testers, business guys, in that sense, up front? Because you're supposed to be doing in-sprint testing, you're supposed to be doing your unit testing, you're supposed to be doing SIT as early as possible. So what if the users are actually looking at acceptance tests? What happens if you start building those acceptance tests in your stories and features? There are many ways of bringing the stakeholders in upfront to engage them. And that way they can see that they're in the process and they're not waiting for 6 months down the line to start testing something. I do want to give a very favorite example of mine. It was around a data migration program that we were trying to do. We were migrating from DB2 to Netezza. And we had some requirements which were captured. And the requirements were plain and simple. We didn't have a lot of logic change. They were just a little bit over there. So for example, a policy start date was the person's birth date. The policy end date was defaulted to 31st December 99999. Now, we were running this program. We were just migrating data. We were just, defaulting the dates. And we invited the architect. We invited the person who was going to be responsible for production maintenance. And we said, hey, do you guys want to see the demo? Because we could run some queries and just show you how the data is looking. We also invited the BI team. That was easy because I was in charge of that. But we invited the developer from the BI team who was responsible for creating the beautiful dashboards in future, which was 2 months down the line. It was so funny until date. I don't know how this happened, but it was really funny when the developer looks at it, the BI guy, and he goes, I'm observing that your policy end dates are different. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, no. I thought the policy end dates are supposed to be same for all. And we all sat there looking at each other like, what does he mean? So figured out in about 10 minutes that instead of policy end date being defaulted to 31st 12/999, the coder had defaulted the policy begin date to 31st 12/999. So it got swapped. So policy end date was everybody's birthday, so it was different, and start date was everybody's same. Now, running a big program, nobody's bothered. Yes, the queries are running, they're working, system is not crashing, the SQL is running fine. But the BI analysis guy sits there going, this is now how it is supposed to look like. He saved us a major embarrassment and a major rework, which would have been very difficult down the line. So I was very thankful that the guy was there. And this is what happens when you have active stakeholder participation.
Yeah, agreed. And I love you use that example, right? And you talk about, too, the stakeholder participation is more of a team sport, right? You succeed with the team, everybody participating, right? Yes. And as you use in your example, hey, if you didn't have them come in and highlight that, that would have been a big hit later on. So again, that participation stay very critical. And for the folks that are watching this vlog, please make sure you check below. I put a link on Jyoti's article. Again, game changer, still resonates today. Awesome job on that, Jyoti.
Thank you.
One other thing too, I want to talk about as somebody who's led multi-million-dollar initiatives and projects, who's worked with CIOs, right? And now as an Agile coach, you are working to help organizations with that change. What are some of the biggest challenges maybe for an Agile coach within an organization, right? Because you've had the experience from just not only coaching, but leading, right? Doing the whole everything. So I'd love to know what you would think are some of the biggest challenges.
Wow, where do I even start? That's a fully loaded question. Um,
Yeah.
there has been so many challenges. I think if I'm being brutally honest, I had an easier life when I was not called a coach, when I was a consultant, a delivery specialist, because people looked at me as somebody who knows how to do delivery. But as soon as I put the hat of a coach, people go, oh, she's only here to give us lectures and she's only here to tell us how things to be done and actually doesn't have a historical background in data or in delivery. That's a very big misconception with a lot of coaches because a lot of us are actually from development background. A lot of us actually still can code in SQL and Unix. So it's not fair to just assume that we only know the frameworks or we only talk about mindset and culture. We actually know what is it that the IT teams are facing and what is it that the business needs to do and leadership needs to have. So it's a full 360-degree view that we've got. A lot of times I feel like people look at coaches as having a silver bullet. Just come solve our problem. This is a 6-month program, 12-month transformation, be done with it. When there's always a cost cutting measure, coaches are the first one to go because who
Oh,
needs coaches? And then they'll go, oh, no, no, we don't need the fluffy stuff. It's not the fluffy stuff. It's introspection into what are you trying to achieve and why are you trying to achieve. Yes, everybody wants to do a transformation, everybody wants to change, but for what? And what kind of journey is it going to be for your people? Is it going to be very much an investment into automation and tools? Is it going to be, very high infrastructure upgrade? Is it going to be a different lens on business? Is it going to be risk and regulatory based? So we all have to always think of different angles. And often people just go, we just need transformation. We just need to deliver faster, cheaper, better. But what does that translate into? That's where the whole gap is. What are your system efficiencies? What are your system blockers? How do people view you when you're trying to do a transformation? There's for the lack of better words, kind of a stigma when people are trying to talk to a coach. They're going, oh, we don't need coaching. We just need you to tell us or do things for us. Don't actually come and say, you should do this and you should do that. Well, we're here to have that conversation and to see how we can help. So I've seen quite a lot of times people just become very disillusioned that the coach has shown us everything, we can do it ourselves. And that's where they start to go downhill. That's where they think that they've understood everything and they're not. Stakeholder participation, stakeholder management, understanding the expectation. A coach is someone who's going to hold to the value of integrity, is going to be true to the person. It's like the analogy I like to give is like a medicine. So the medicine is going to make you healthier. The medicine needs a dosage of 1 spoon at night every day. You're not going to finish the bottle and overdose. You will need that 1 spoon a night every day. So don't think because you've had 3 spoons and your cough looks a little better that the everything is gone, you're cured, your health is fine. No, now the coach is actually going to look at your body, is going to do performance improvement, is going to build your stamina. There's so many other things the coach is going to do for you. So there's always that bigger picture of why do you need a coach? Do you really believe in getting coached? Another favorite pet peeve of mine is people hiring coaches because we're perfect. Don't come and coach us. Coach the other team. Coach that side of the fence. Because, we're the leaders. We're paying for you. So please, just we're perfect. Don't come and tell us what we need to change. Tell them they need to change. It doesn't work like that. If you need to start a change, a transformation, it starts from you. You need to understand what is it that your people need from you. And if they see you changing, they will adopt it.
yeah, and I totally agree, Jyoti. And I hope that the folks that are watching this video, especially have you talked about the value, the importance, in your experience, they understand it. And for the folks who just love sports, and for the folks who watch probably The Last Dance, it was on ESPN about the Bulls and Michael Jordan. At the end of the day, Michael Jordan, when he didn't have the coach Phil Jackson, he didn't win, right? Without the coach Phil Jackson coming on, working with even their best player, Michael Jordan, making him change, making the organization change. That is why they won. Same thing what he did with the Lakers. The value of the coach. You have to be able to change. You're not perfect. Michael Jordan knew he thought he was the man, but then he changed based on the coaching from Phil Jackson. And as an organization, they changed and they won all those titles. And he did that with the Lakers. So I love how you talk about, the value. And I hope organizations understand the value. And it's not you're the first ones to be cut off because you bring the value. You need to enact change to really take on the whole new data changes in the world. So love how you talk about that, Jyoti. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And, I got to ask, too, my last question, what are some of the major trends you foresee, not only just with the Agile coaches, but with the data delivery, because you worked on so many of these multi-million-dollar initiatives that companies will either have to learn or they're going to have to tackle later on to make themselves data-driven, right? What do you foresee in some of those trends?
Oh, a lot. A lot has been written about it. A lot gets talked about it. I love reading into Gartner's report and the HBR reviews. It's just amazing. Data is everywhere, from AI to Bitcoin to natural language processing. I mean, there's no stopping data anymore. I like to use the quote that I always say, in God we trust, for everything else, bring your data. So it's going to be very data centric. If people think that they can avoid or go around it, there's no choice. There's absolutely no choice. Something I was reading recently, which struck a chord with me, was Gartner saying that there will be a decline in dashboard. You know how people love dashboard reporting, seeing those pie charts go up and down, the bar graphs up and down. There will be a huge decline because dynamic data stories will take over. Dynamic data stories with more automated and consumerized experience. It'll be live changes based on the role, based on the persona, based on the needs, based on market trends. It will change right then and there. Now that is something that blows my mind because even till date, I see people going through dashboard and every week there's a new dashboard presented and people are running around to update that dashboard. Imagine a world where you have to do nothing. You just hook up with API and cloud and you are just looking at the live trends. How mind-boggling is that? That also means that you'll be so much in tune with the user's need, so much in tune with the market trends that you may have to change or pivot very fast. There won't be months or even days to make that change. If you're in a product business, you will have to react faster. And in order for you to react faster, you couldn't have silos of business, finance, IT, procurement, legal, marketing. No, it's going to be one unit which develops, deliver, funds, goes to market that much faster. Fast, when we talk about speed, when we talk about delivery, it has to be with quality because who's going to buy a half-cooked product from you? So those silos have to go. There has to be just one recognized team, which is actually pushing through things at a very fast rate in product world, in market. So for me, it is an amazing concept because coaches are trying so hard to bring these silos together. But with this happening in data world right now, with this, there's no escaping this. It may just be an organic evolution and it'll happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speed, quality, real time, totally true. And this is why coaches are so important, and again, Jyoti, I want to thank you for taking the time and joining me on Talking Data and more today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for reading the article and having me over here.
No, thank you. And hopefully everybody, as I mentioned, the link will be below. Please check the article. Great article. Game changer, still resonates today. I want to thank you all for taking the time and watching Talking Data and more. My name is Chris Evans, and I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.